Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conversationalist. I'm Andy Del Collins, Head of Community Operations, and we are so excited to welcome you back for another night in honoring incredible Gen Zers who are using their voices for good. Tonight, we're going to be honoring our list honorees for politics. For those of you who are new to the Conversationalist, we are on a journey to unify the world, one Gen Z voice at a time. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight and being part of that mission to break open echo chambers, amplify voices, and unify the world. Just a reminder that this is a conversation. We encourage you to pop into the live chat all throughout tonight's event and share your voice as well. If you enjoyed tonight's conversation, we invite you to join our online community by texting UNIFY to 1-877-222-1119. As you all know, today was a historic day in the United States. Today we saw the inauguration of our new administration, including our very first female and person of color as vice president. Politics, as we all know, has been on the forefront of so many conversations this year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Before we meet our Gen Z honorees, we are so thrilled to introduce our 2020-2021 Celebrity List honoree for politics. She is the creator and co-founder of I Am a Voter, a non-partisan organization dedicated to creating cultural shifts around voting and civic engagement that bring people together to start conversations and take action. She is also the co-host of the Dissenters podcast with Debra Messing. Yes, the Debra Messing. Through her work, she has encouraged young people everywhere to explore their political passions through civic engagement and conversation. And I'm so excited to bring to the stage Mandana Dayani.
Hi.
Hello, Mandana, how are you?
Great, thank you so much. This is so exciting.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you here with us tonight. And, before we dive in, I know you've done so much work on this election with I Am a Voter, and I just want to know how you're feeling today with the inauguration.
I'm really great. We started the morning, me and my two daughters, we watched the whole morning, and it was just so powerful and it was so hopeful. I think that was just like my word for the day. Like I just felt so much hope. And it was just so beautiful seeing just the change of power and seeing so many people show up and just be so positive today, and just remembering that we are much more united than I think we have appeared recently. And so it was just beautiful. It's like such a great, great day. And of course, Kamala was just spectacular. It was such a moment in history. So it was great. It was really amazing having two daughters for today.
I'm sure. I can't imagine. I know a lot of people who have young daughters, and they had them in front of the TV today, because this is just, growing up, I never knew if we'd be here. And so I'm so excited for our first female vice president and for our new president's just message of unity, because that's what we're all about here at the Conversationalist, is trying to bring people together. So on that note, you started a nonpartisan political organization. What inspired you to kind of set aside your own personal biases and really work to bring people together through I Am a Voter?
So, I came to America as a religious refugee. And so when you come to this country, you come here because it's the greatest place in the entire world. So I was always raised with this really profound sense of patriotism. And we were always so grateful to America because it literally saved our lives. And so I think I've always felt this huge sense of debt to America, and like always this responsibility to give back. And it's why I went to law school and practiced law and did all the other things that I did. And just seeing how divided our country felt the last couple of years was really, really heartbreaking for me, because it's just not the America that I grew up with or understanding the potential of. And I think what I really felt like I wanted to dive in, and my history has always been in, building brands and in the tech and fashion and entertainment space. And so I started taking meetings with different people in politics and trying to really understand how to bridge this gap, like what is happening. And everyone just kept saying, like, if we really want systemic change, we need greater voter participation. And I was like, who's not voting? What are you talking about? And I think, again, as an immigrant, it's such a privilege that I never took it for granted. And when I started looking at the data and I really started seeing all the people that weren't voting, it was 100 million people didn't vote in the last election. And that just like blew my mind. And so I don't know. I think the more research I did and the more I looked into it, I just felt like there was an opportunity to create a modern voting brand that really spoke to our generation, that was positive and empowering and focused on what united us, and just really captured how cool it was to be an active participant. And so I think that's what we tried to do. We tried to bridge all of our experience in consumer spaces and creating really modern brands and storytelling and narratives and kind of bring that into the space. I don't think anyone needs to be inspired by you know what I mean? It's not about any one of us, it's about the collective. And so, I don't know. I think there really wasn't ever a question for us about whether it should be nonpartisan or not.
I love that. And, I think that's such an important point. Voter turnout in the past has been so low. And when I hear those numbers, I'm shocked as well. Who's not voting? But clearly that the work that you put in and the work that all voting organizations,
yeah.
I mean, the turnout was amazing. I mean, both candidates broke records for the number of votes that they received. And that's all thanks to organizations like I Am a Voter, who really tried to bring people out to vote. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. It's the thing I'm the most proud of in my life. So it's been such an honor. I've learned I literally knew nothing before we started this. So it has been incredible to kind of learn through this journey.
I love that. And, it's safe to say that we've lived through some politically charged historical events over the past year. So how has everything that's happened in 2020 and the beginning of 2021 really impacted the work you're doing?
I mean, it definitely validates the importance of what we're doing. I think that, there was a moment in time when I quit my job to start this that I was like, am I insane? But I think the events that unraveled after, I really knew that I was doing kind of what I needed to be doing right now. I think, even when we started this, we received so much pushback from brands and from people and influencers that we had worked with in our past. And I think over the last year, we really got over this idea that we can't get political or that people think they're not political. We just kept hearing that all the time. And I was like, but everything is political. Your rights as a human, the pothole outside your front door is political. Everything is political. And you can't just sit there and say that you can't participate. And I also think over this last year, we really solidified this idea that you need to use your platform for good. All of these people, every single voice matters. And I don't care if you have 10 followers, right? You have an obligation to stand up to any injustice that you experience or your neighbor experiences or anyone else in your community. And this idea of this collective voice and how important community is. And to your point earlier about just getting out the vote, I mean, I think we all realize through all of the things that happen that the only way we're really going to improve is when we all come together and we all chip in and support each other, even if it's not our cause or our issue. And so I don't know, I think that really has been the theme for me this year, is just the importance of community and the importance of every individual voice.
Absolutely. And, at the Conversationalist, that's what we're all about, is using your voice for good in whatever way works best for you, however you can do it. Every voice matters. So I love that you said that. So, it's Inauguration Day. We've talked about this, and America officially has new leadership. What are your hopes for our government and how they can kind of lead the way in ending some of this divisiveness that we have in our country right now?
I mean, I'm a very hopeful person by nature. I don't think I could do this work if I wasn't. I think we have learned as a country that we have the option of being a part of the solution. That if we all chipped in, right, that if we all participated in this idea of imagining a better way, that we can get there collectively, that we can build the blocks it takes for us to get there as a country. And so, I mean, I think that the more people stay engaged and people run for office, I think even as a community, if we can sustain this, all the things we learned even during COVID, right? The joy of dancing in the streets, and thanking our first responders and our frontline workers and helping our elderly and understanding that the health and well-being of others is directly tied to our own well-being, then we can collectively come together and imagine a better America. And that is the responsibility of our government. I mean, we do have a government that stepped up and said, we want unity, but our job is to hold them accountable. They work for us. And I think this is something that's always lost on people when I have these conversations, is you have to vote and you have to participate because you have to hold these people accountable, and they're only going to be held accountable to you if they know you're voting, right? They want your vote. And so, I mean, I am very hopeful that this administration is going to set this as a huge priority, but it won't work unless everyone shows up, right? It won't work unless everyone participates in this desire to unify. And so, I don't know. I think it's really important that they set the agenda, but I do think it's on so many of us to help drive that agenda.
That is so true. And, it's something we talk about a lot is, our political leaders, they're working for us, and we can't, if we just sit aside and don't pay attention, like they're going to do whatever they want, and they might not do what they said they were going to do. So I love like the idea of us all coming together and coming to that agreement that we have to hold every administration accountable, whether you voted for this current administration or not. I think it's so important that we all really hold him to his promise of unity, because I think that's something every American can agree on, right? Mm-hmm. Like that we should want to be the United States. So right. I'm super excited to kind of continue that and see what happens over these next 4 years. So, we have so many Gen Zers in our community who are so excited about politics and super invested. So what advice do you have for those Gen Zers who aspire to get involved in politics, and how can they get involved with your platform?
So the thing about Gen Z is they are the largest and most diverse generation this country has ever seen. Every year, 7 million Americans turn 18. I mean, the power that Gen Z has is insane. And they could drive the political agenda for so long if they voted and participated and organized and we saw how important it is to organize and mobilize in Georgia. I mean, we saw the effects it has when you mobilize voters. If Gen Z can show up for elections and hold elected officials, as we just said, accountable, and organize their communities and make sure that their peers are voting, they will be the most powerful generation this country has ever had. So that's step one. I think that the second step, and this is a lot of what we talk about on the Dissenters, is this idea of just start today. Like everyone can make a huge difference, and you shouldn't wait for validation. You shouldn't wait until you have experience. You don't need any of those things. Like if there is any injustice that you've experienced or anything that you care about or any cause that you believe in, just start, like join an organization, join us. I mean, we would do anything to have more volunteers. It's an entirely volunteer-led organization. I've never been paid $1 for the work I do. But I think it's really about showing up. It's about participating. It's about being active. It's about being mobile. It's about sharing your opinions, trying to inspire other people. And I mean, for me, anytime I took any major career shifts, it really started with research. Trying to learn as much as I can, asking a ton of questions, finding as many mentors as I can to help guide me, building a network of other people that I really respect and I really admire and I can look up to. And obviously with so much work and participation, it's just, there's literally nothing that you can't do. So my advice is always to just start anywhere, but just start. Don't create, like I always used to create all these weird hurdles to starting. Like I thought I had to have a certain grade or a certain amount of experience or all of these things. Like I'm not ready yet. I need to have a kid. I don't even know what it was. I always had these like things that I thought I had to achieve, but you don't actually, any of them.
That is so true. And I hope everybody watching is taking notes, because I feel like we are learning so much from you. It sounds so simple, like start now, but it's something that I think like everybody needs to hear over and over again. Because I know we all get caught up in the, well, what about this? What about that? I'm not ready. I know I specifically run into that a lot. So it's just such a powerful message. So thank you for sharing that with all of us.
I mean, I've had so many shifts in my career. Like I started as a lawyer, then I worked as a talent agent, then I ran a fashion and media company, then I worked in tech, and then I started in politics. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Every time I enter any of this, I joined a fashion company, had to produce a fashion show within 2 weeks. I'd never been to one, didn't know what it was. I mean, there's nothing that you cannot figure out if you just hustle really hard and ask a ton of questions. And so my greatest advice is just to not create barriers. Like do not let yourself be the reason that you are not pursuing whatever it is that you're passionate about.
I love that. That is such good advice. So last question, you have successfully created a nonpartisan platform to bring people together and really, rally behind getting out the vote. How do you think all of our political parties can come together and do the same and be more unified in 2021?
I mean, it depends. So they have to want to, right? So I think part of the problem that we have is not everyone has the same agenda. I think the ones that don't, it requires other people to participate and show up and advocate for those things. I mean, when you think about like even gun safety, 90-something% of Americans want background checks. Even like 70% of NRA members support background checks, but they don't promote it because the people that are the most vocal are the ones that don't. And if the large majority of people that are NRA members that pay those fees stood up and advocated for the things that they cared about, then they could hold the NRA accountable and make them go bankrupt, which they are now, but a lot sooner. I think it's about the advocacy. It really is about using your voice. And that's why I always say, like, people come up to me and they're like, I don't have a ton of followers. None of that matters. You are like, you're a human being, you're a citizen, you need to be an active participant, and your voice is critical for the collective being. And so it's on all of us to raise our voices and to advocate, and just, I mean, so much has changed this last year through advocacy. And I think like it's so hard to ignore it now. I mean, it's in our face. Like, we've all seen it. We know it's important. We know it works. So I don't know. It's really just about showing up every single day. It's being hopeful about the future. It's about using your imagination to think about how it can be better, and then doing the hard work and the advocacy to get us there.
Wow. I love that. You've shared so much with us today, and
You're so sweet.
Thank you so much for being here, Mandana. I know I'm such a personal fan of I Am a Voter and everything you're doing, and it's been an honor speaking with you. So thank you for being with us tonight and sharing your wisdom with all of our Gen Z community. And we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. And yeah, this was such an honor. So thank you guys so much.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy your celebration.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. I'm a little verklempt. What an icon. I want to hear what everybody else thought about Mandana, so definitely let us know in the live chat, and we can pull some of your comments up on the screen. But now that we've heard from our celebrity honoree, we want to get to our Gen Zers. So I'm going to go through and introduce everyone individually, and then stay tuned at the end where we'll all come back together and have a conversation. So let's get started. All right. So, okay. All right. Our first honoree is an intern with the Jersey City Councilman at Large, Rolando Lavaro. He specializes in community engagement, social media management, and local political issues. As a resident of Jersey City, he keeps up to date on local issues and does his civic duty by participating in city council meetings, encouraging friends and family to speak out on issues, and educating others in the community on how or why they need to participate. He also manages his own political blog covering topics including local, U.S., and international politics. He believes that all it takes is one meaningful conversation to inspire you to pursue your voice. Welcome to the stage, Adrian Gainda. Hey, let's bring Adrian up. Hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Adrian, it is so impressive how you've taken initiative within your own community to help spark positive change within your local government. What advice would you have for those who have ideas but don't believe they have the power to make a difference?
So, for starters, one piece of advice that I think holds true with me is that our actions will always speak louder than our words. It's easy to get overwhelmed, and it's easy to feel disenfranchised, because if administrations didn't want to keep their power, they wouldn't use as many resources as they do to try and hold us down and try and prevent us from speaking out against them or taking action to either replace them in upcoming elections or to hold them accountable for the campaign promises they may have made. So for me, I feel like the first I think the first step would be finding your own voice. And that could be in many different ways. It could be having conversations with friends and family and just gauging like how they feel on these issues as well. So really establishing what your own voice is and then putting yourself in that political sphere. And political activism could be something as simple as resharing a post you saw on Instagram that has like helpful content, because you're increasing that audience and it could amplify the amount of people that are exposed to that information. And it could be as simple as signing and sharing petitions on a plethora of issues. I'm pretty sure that we've seen since this past summer, there's been thousands of petitions, and it only takes a couple of seconds to put your information and then share it on your social media platforms. One thing that I think is really big is weaponizing your strengths. So for example, my strength would be my writing, and I was able to do so by starting my own blog. And I remember that I had my own thoughts where I thought, well, starting a blog is kind of redundant. A lot of people have done so in the past, but just really owning up to what you feel like you can contribute to the public sphere is really how you can take those first steps. And then again, going back to having conversations with people, it's easy to, again, get overwhelmed and just feel like if I were to stop, no one would really notice. It's easy to feel like, no one's really paying attention to what you're doing. So if I stop now, then no one's really going to miss that. But in retrospect, you're not supposed to be doing it for yourself. You're supposed to be doing it for the better of mankind or humankind. So in essence, just being able to take baby steps until you're comfortable enough to, really go into those big movements, whether it's protesting on the streets, whether it's participating in council meetings or any kind of like state or federal type of action, or anything, like I said, that's deemed as small. Just being able to put yourself out there and see that, this work that I'm doing actually matters. And just reminding yourself that, you have that mental capacity, that mental strength to keep pushing forward. Because I feel like that's something that a lot of us have struggled with. Because I know I could say that for myself personally, that it's been a struggle with 2020 and just trying to find that strength to keep going. But as long as you find it within yourself to do so, and remind yourself that any action is a positive political change, then you can honestly do whatever it takes.
I love that so much. And I really loved what you said about weaponizing your own strengths. I think a lot of people think political action looks a specific way. And I think there's so many different ways people can get involved. And, I don't know that everybody always realizes that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Adrian. I'm going to put you backstage for now, but we'll definitely be talking again soon. And I can't wait to hear more from you.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. Wow, it was so great to hear from Adrian. And now we are going to hear from our next honoree. So our next honoree is the co-founder and president of the Greater Good Initiative. He uses his platform to uplift the voices of those who don't have the same platform and is actively working to help them turn these ideas into realistic policy solutions. In 5 years, he sees himself running for public office. I am so honored to introduce a very active member of our own community, Adam Ashley. Hey, Adam, welcome.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm having a great day. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much for hosting this. It's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you back. I know you were in one of our very first political panels.
Back in August.
So welcome back.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited to talk more about you and what you've been doing. So, you really help turn young voices into actionable change through your organization, The Greater Good. What are some things that the everyday person can do to take action in political topics that they believe in fighting for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think specifically when you're a Gen Zer, the best way to get involved in politics is local government. I'm a big proponent of emphasizing the importance of local government, and especially when you're a young person and a student, there's so many amazing opportunities regarding student advocacy. That's where I got my start. I was very involved in leadership at my high school and then sort of elevated it to the next level. I'm from Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, and we have 196 schools in our county, almost 200,000 students. And so working closely with the school board, working closely with the superintendent, and actually suggesting policy, making recommendations, and pushing for active change has been really important in helping me find what my passion is. I think specifically, there's so many organizations, so many small groups, local level groups that young people can get involved in. They range so many different issues, and if you're passionate about anything, you can probably find an organization that you can connect with. For example, the Greater Good Initiative, which is my organization that I founded back in April with my friend Tarina. It's a youth-led policy think tank. So we write 60 to 80-page policy proposals, and we lobby them to legislators at all levels of government all across the country. And of course, it's super nerdy. It sounds super nerdy, but it's what me and my friends and my colleagues are passionate about. And it has really allowed youth voices to enter a sphere where there are not young people, there are not Gen Z voices. I think it's so important to be fearless. I know Mandana talked about this earlier, but she kept coming up with hurdles for stopping herself from getting involved in politics and pushing for change. And that's definitely something that as a young person, it's really, really, really easy to, feel like this is extremely difficult. This is not something that you can do. But when we started GGI, we had no idea what we were doing. We started almost a year ago, and now we have over 120 people working with GGI, working on our policy and advocacy efforts. And I just think it's really important to find what you're passionate about and turn it into your thing. All my friends know that I'm super duper passionate about transportation and infrastructure policy, which is super duper nerdy, but I've made myself the expert on it. And I think that that's really helped drive me into feeling confident in what I'm saying, feeling confident in the policy and the ideas and the political stances that I'm putting forward, because I feel like I've educated myself to the best of my ability. I know that in this age of this Trump era and transitioning into the Biden era, I know Biden mentioned it in his inauguration speech, talking about fake news and fact versus fiction. And I think we as young people have access to so many resources, whether that's news websites, whether that's social media, where we can educate ourselves to the best of our ability. And I think that has really pushed Gen Z forward into a place where no generation has ever been before, because we have so much access to so much information, and it's helped make this generation, I think, so powerful. A big thing that we say with the Greater Good Initiative is you do not need a master's degree or an education in public policy to be passionate about putting ideas forward and taking your passion and turning it into realistic policy and lobbying it to legislators, lobbying it to stakeholders who are going to be affected by your policy. And I think it's so important to emphasize that just because you don't have the traditional experience that others might have looking at politicians, that politicians definitely have, you can absolutely 100% make change.
I love that so much. And, I think that's an important lesson we're running through all tonight is like, just do it, You don't have to know what you're doing. You can just start. And I think that's so inspiring. I wouldn't know where to get started with writing actual policy. That seems very intimidating. And I love that you just dove in and have been able to create all this change by the work that you're doing. So
it's been an amazing experience. Yes. And we're so grateful for this opportunity. I'm so grateful for the Conversationalist, which has been really paramount in helping me elevate my voice even further and elevating the work that GGI is doing. So I'm so grateful for TC. I'm so grateful for this amazing opportunity.
Awesome. Well, we are also so grateful for you, Adam, and I am excited to chat with you a little bit more later.
Awesome. Sounds great.
All right. Wow. Everybody is just doing such incredible work, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our next Gen Zer. She is a gun safety activist and the founder of Keystone Common Ground Collective from Scranton, PA. Over the course of a year, she has facilitated a consensus building workshop across WCU, reaching over 1,000 students. She has also developed relationships with state representatives and gained their commitment to listening to young voices when considering gun safety policy decisions. She holds space for community building dialogue for young people regarding gun safety. And we're not surprised that she loves public speaking because it allows her to connect with an audience. So audience, please welcome to the stage, Ellie Selam. Awesome. Hi, Ellie. Welcome. I think you're on mute.
I'm definitely on mute. Well, hi, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here with us. So, Ellie, you've not only used your voice for good, but you've helped others to do so as well through your organization, the Keystone Common Ground Collective. What inspired you to become a gun safety activist and to take action within your own local government? And what are you hoping to achieve?
It's a really good question. So I think, unfortunately, like most people, I became a gun safety activist because I said enough is enough, right? People don't normally get into gun safety activism for positive reasons, but we hope to create positive change, right? There's that light at the end of the tunnel. I actually got involved with gun safety activism in 2018, shortly after Parkland, a collective formed at my school. And I was in charge of organizing and hosting a town hall for local and state candidates of the midterm election to have the floor to speak to gun policy that they were hoping to enact once elected. And it was an opportunity for students to really hold their local candidates accountable. And that kind of laid the groundwork for founding the Keystone Common Ground Collective a year later. I realized that after doing a lot of research and writing a very tiny white paper, a little report, I learned that there's so much perceived division among people surrounding opinions on gun safety and gun control, gun violence, all the different dynamics of gun use in the United States. And there's a lot of perceived polarity and division. And the truth is, we have so much more in common than we think all across the spectrum. All political issues have their extremists, and then there's people in the middle who have so much that they can truly agree on, right? We all want to protect ourselves and our communities, and we all believe in public safety on a grand scale. And my goal was to help people realize that by just talking to each other about it and breaking those misperceptions. And that's how the Keystone Common Ground Collective came to be. That's how all of my workshops ran. I got to see a lot of light bulbs go off in students' heads as they were talking to each other. They didn't necessarily agree on specific actions to take or specific overall policies, but they had the same goals for their communities. They wanted everyone to feel safe and be protected. And knowing that I was actually able to bring people together over common ground has been incredibly rewarding. So I guess what I'm hoping to achieve is more progress in bringing people together who don't necessarily agree on everything, but are united over that fundamental principle of public safety.
I love that. And I think like that is such an important principle that I really try to think about when I'm having a conversation with somebody I don't agree with. You know, I think at the end of the day, most of us, we want a similar outcome. We just have different ways of getting there. And I really think it's how we unify is focusing on what is it we're trying to achieve. And I think we can kind of work backwards from there. So thank you for doing this important work. You know, gun safety is something that I think is on the top of all of Gen Z's minds. And, you know, I'm so happy that there are people like you out there trying to create, you know, non-partisan conversations around this. So I'm excited to hear from you more later, Ellie, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Wow, talk about somebody who's really living out TC's mission. Awesome. So our next honoree is the founder and executive director of the Montana Youth Action. He uses his voice for good by encouraging his peers and teaching those interested in social advocacy about creating the change they want to see. He founded the largest 100% youth-run Gen Z civics organization in Montana and serves on the Governor's Youth Justice Council. Welcome to the stage, Isaac Nearing. Hey, Isaac, welcome.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. Isaac, I'm so excited to learn more about you. You've really unified Gen Zers in Montana to make their voices heard and make a difference, while also holding a seat within your local government at such a young age. What have been some of your proudest moments working through your organization, Montana Youth Action, and from serving on the Governor's Youth Justice Council?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about the barriers that Gen Z faces in getting involved in politics. And I just want to emphasize, being from Montana, there's just an added level that we have to address here as leaders with that. There's a high population of rural youth. There's a lot of like high schoolers and not middle schoolers, but youth that are working to support their families. And just with the geography of Montana, such an expansive state, that how do we connect these many different youth and get them involved in the issues that they care about? And I'm proudest of Montana Youth Action's mission in kind of addressing all three of those at the same time, because there are urban populations and progressive populations in those areas, but there's a lot of more conservative youth too. And what our mission is to bring those groups together in a nonpartisan manner and find those ways to extend communication, especially to those rural communities, but also allow the sharing of ideas in all different types of communities in the state. And we do a lot of the same stuff that the Conversationalist does too. One of our very first events was our launch party back in 2019, and we had a panel with the then Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney, Secretary of State candidate Bryce Bennett, congressional candidate Tom Winter, and campaign manager Emily Harris. And we had this great conversation that just revolved around these issues that affect Gen Z. And some of the questions involved are, how do you stay involved without facing burnout? Because we're juggling school, we're often juggling jobs, and we also want to be as involved as we can. But we also talked about some of the importance of Gen Z being involved too, and how it's important that we use our voices so we don't let other generations kind of stand on top of us. It's a collaborative thing. But another event I'd like to highlight too is right now Montana is in the midst of our 67th legislative session, and we have a fellowship going on that I am extremely proud of, because Montana Youth Action being 100% youth run, it's all high schoolers. So this fellowship we have is 8th through 12th grade, and I'm a junior in high school. So in leading this, I'm not just leading people younger than me, but there's seniors who are above me too. So with that dynamic, it's really special, the sharing of ideas and that ability for not only our fellows to learn and get involved in the legislature, but also for myself and my other staff leading that to get involved and learn too. Because I think having that kind of baseline lack of an age gap, it's just such a great opportunity to really share those ideas authentically. And then, yeah, the governor's council, it's a really cool opportunity to be involved there. And I'm a generally progressive youth living in Montana, and Governor Gianforte is extremely conservative. So I think that's just a great exemplifying example of kind of bringing together parties, because we're working together on kind of these common issues of addressing youth in the criminal justice system and reforming those things. And yeah, I'm just really proud of having that ability to unify there too. So thank you.
Thank you. I mean, everything you're saying is incredible, and I'm so impressed that you're able to do all of this at such a young age and recognize the importance of talking with people who don't necessarily agree with you and creating those bridges between, different political parties. So thank you so much, Isaac, and I'm super excited to chat with you a little bit more later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Wow, we have so many amazing people on this panel tonight. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. So our next honoree is the president of Ignite at GMU and a federal policy associate for March for Our Lives. We're excited to amplify her voice as she does for other Gen Zers through her advocacy on Gen Z issues at all levels of government. She believes that when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. And we think that is so beautiful. So welcome to the stage, Bella D'Alacio. Hi, Bella. Welcome.
Hi, Andy. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited to have you, Bella. So as the president of Ignite at GMU and the federal policy associate for March for Our Lives, I'd love to hear your thoughts just kind of on the U.S. government this year. What has made you proud? Where has our government disappointed you? And what do you hope improves, moving into 2021 with this new administration?
Yeah, so this past 4 years, I think the government has disappointed me a lot in a number of ways. And a lot of my advocacy is through lobbying. So I have to speak directly with Congress members on both sides of the aisle and explain things about like gun violence prevention measures, as well as like the root causes of gun violence. So sometimes we focus on like homelessness and how that can create gun violence in a community, or just firearm regulations in general and how these mitigate harm specifically to Black youth and to people of color and children in school. And so sometimes, it's hard talking to people and having to be a young person, understanding all of these things and taking the initiative because no one else is. And I feel like the government has failed young people in a number of ways. Our leaders haven't taken bold action to defend us. We elected them for a reason. And so when young people have to stand up and we have to sit down and learn bills and understand all the intricacies about gun violence and about immigration and climate change, that's really saying something. So I think that, I'm most proud of the people of this country who came together, the BIPOC youth who have organized and mobilized around the nation to create the change they wanted to see in government. And so today I can finally say I am a proud American who has seen the first woman of color be vice president, the first woman be vice president, the first person of color be vice president. She broke so many amazing, records in that just one nomination, and also just seeing a nation coming together to unify. And just today, I could say I'm proud of the inauguration team for creating such a peaceful inauguration and with the utmost elegance as well. And, just being safe and honoring that we have people dying of the coronavirus around the nation, honoring those who have elected them. And today I'm so excited that our president has enacted new legislation to repeal the things that our old president has done for harm for our communities, like the, defunding the border wall, ending that, protections for dreamers, ending the Keystone Pipeline, re-signing onto the Paris Agreement. Our president is already showing that he has good intentions to go on the promises of the reasons that we've elected him. And so I'm so excited to see that. And in the next 4 years, I'm so excited to see Gen Z run for office. I mean, that's going to be amazing. We've trailblazed so many of these movements, and now we're going to have the opportunity to directly sit at the table and create that legislation in just a few years.
You up there, in Congress, making moves and like really working to make our country a better place. You're already doing so much now, and I just can't wait to see what else you do. So thank you, Bella, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Wow. Just everybody is so impressive. So we're going to bring on our next honoree. This honoree is a political activist. He is drawn to grassroots political action and progressive pragmatism. His dad taught him everything that he knows about working hard and providing for the people that you love. So we are so excited to honor him for his hard work. He focuses on policy regarding class inequality, as well as prison and law enforcement reform. Pre-pandemic, he was working for a campaign where his time was spent on the road with Pete Buttigieg. He is focused on amplifying Gen Z's determination to carry bold, progressive actions to politics. Welcome to the stage, Jordan Ramsey. Hi, Jordan. Welcome.
It's so nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you too. I feel like I know so much about you from, reading all of your work, but it's so nice to just be here at, in person, in virtual world with you. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I love your sweater too. It's so cute.
Thank you. It's TC Gold, so I was trying to represent. Awesome. Well, Jordan, prior to the pandemic, you campaigned with Pete Buttigieg. And a lot has happened since then. So how are you feeling about the events of 2020, and how have they affected your political activism?
Yeah. Well, the past year has really impacted activism in a lot of really remarkable ways. I think that one of the absolute biggest things is that a lot of the activism I used to do was on the ground, organizing, talking to voters, introducing people to politics, that kind of thing. And obviously, because of the pandemic, all of our physical scope is cut down so much. So what had to happen was, as I came home and was trying to reflect on that experience and figure out how I could be more effective during the pandemic, I thought back to really what that experience campaigning with him was for me, because I spent months living out of my suitcase on like planes, traveling with Pete to like the biggest cities like Vegas and the tiniest little communities in Iowa that I would have never known existed had I not been on the campaign. And I thought about what actually unites like everyone I met across the country, the thousands of people, like what is actually the common denominator between all of us? And because activism should kind of be in that space, kind of getting us to that point. And I realized that everyone just wants the government to support their own pursuit of happiness and support the safety of their neighbors and whatnot. And it's just so important that as we start to rethink activism, we rethink the way that we work. It's really important that is at the center. Actually, people's hearts are at the center. So I think that this has been a really, really, really unbelievable year for activism. But I think the biggest thing absolutely is that everyone can be an activist now. Like everyone has their social media platforms. Everyone has that same voice. So I think we have to really break through the noise and make sure that our activism still is really effective. And what I think that we can do is make sure that we are not just, taking a Canva infographic and just sending it off to our followers, to people who likely already agree with us. I think it's really important that when we think about activism, we actually think about actions that impact people's life and that directly impact people's opinions and their welfare. And the way that we do that is by having actual research, statistic, and science-based policy solutions. So, for example, a lot of my research on class inequality, some really sobering statistics that I've found are kids whose parents did go to college will grow up to earn 7 times more money than kids whose parents didn't go to college. So it's entirely out of their control. Additionally, 80% of kids in the top income quartile will graduate college, but only 10% of kids in the bottom income quartile will graduate college. That's a 70% gap that 50 years ago was actually only a 30% gap. So we're heading in the wrong direction. And activism really needs to be focused on the policy that will impact people's lives, that will allow these kids to go to college, and that will help them, achieve these dreams that everyone across the country is unified on.
Wow, those are some really kind of staggering statistics, and it's scary to think that we're going backwards. And I just really appreciate the hard work you're putting in to try to change that and put us on the right path. So thank you for your work, Jordan, and we will talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, well, let's meet our next honoree. So I am honored to announce our next honoree, who is also an active member of our community. Her advice to Gen Z is to find something that's worth fighting for, a cause that you feel impassioned by, and one with a solution that you feel you can contribute to. She's a 20-year-old campaign organizer, and she uses her voice to have meaningful conversations across party lines to make a difference in America, and we have loved watching her do so. So welcome to the stage, Kate Ahern. Hi, Kate, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here with us. We love having you in our community, and we're so excited to have been able to honor you. And, it's just been so inspiring to see you engage in meaningful conversation with people coming from all different political parties. And regardless of political party affiliation, how do you think we can come together and work towards unification as a nation?
So I'll be blunt about this. I think we first need to stop allowing people to frame things like racism, homophobia, and sexism as opinions. They're not. And that's a huge pervasive problem in America. Other democratic countries recognize this, and they make active efforts to make sure all national parties condemn these acts regardless of political affiliation. And like I just said, we don't do that in America. One thing that does give me hope, and this is a bipartisan thing, is that the Republican Party is evolving because of Gen Z. We're seeing unprecedented numbers of BIPOC and LGBTQ youth who are moving to this party mostly because of capitalism. And we've never seen that happen before. And while I'm personally on the other side of the political spectrum, this still gives me hope that in the future, our politicians will be more diverse and they can all work together in this fight for justice and equality. In the words of Emma Lazarus, she whose words are immortalized on the base of the Statue of Liberty, until we are all free, we are none of us free. So as we move towards creating this more unified country, I think people across the political spectrum denouncing hatred and domestic terrorism is going to be crucial. Unity is diversity, it is acceptance, it is justice, and I do have hope that someday it will be America.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kate. And we will talk to you again soon. All right, so that brings us to our last honoree. So our final honoree tonight is the founder of Gen Z GOP, an organization dedicated to reshaping the future of the Republican Party. Just like the Conversationalist, he wants young people to be able to engage in politics in a productive manner so that they can tackle the issues of our time. His advice is to listen to others before using your voice, and after that, go with your heart and what makes you passionate. His contribution is to attempt to make the GOP a good faith actor in the political process. So welcome to the stage, Mike Brodo.
Hi, thanks for
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm doing well. So Mike, as the founder of Gen Z GOP, how do you hope to reshape the future of the Republican Party? And what are your hopes for the future of our country?
Absolutely. I think the first way that we shape the future of the party is by engaging the future leaders of the party, and that would be Gen Z. So that's what I set out to do this summer. I think a lot of it stemmed from a dissatisfaction with the administration that we just had and some of the rhetoric and the policies, but also what I saw downstream. I would try to talk to people, other community organizers that I had known for so many years, that I had knocked doors with and gone to events with, that just seemed to be enamored with this cult of personality. I would share them articles and they would say, I don't believe that. And it was really, frustrating in a sense to see people that I had once worked with just totally enamored with someone who I thought was dividing our country surgically. So I wanted to give a voice because I knew that people my age who were right of center had similar dissatisfactions. So we created a podcast at first where we thought we could represent what it was like to debate ideas in productive fashions. We launched a blog series. We're pretty active on Twitter. And then we also have had town halls where we can debate things like climate change, moving away from a GOP that debates whether or not it exists, which it does, to how can we address these things? Because right now, the Democrats seem to have a monopoly on the young voters, a monopoly on discussing these issues such as climate change, racial justice, LGBTQ plus rights. We don't want that to be the case. We want to be able to come to the table as good faith actors and debate the merits of these solutions. So that's what I set out to do. And I think we're doing a great job and we're excited for the years coming forward. Not that we're going to agree with everything that the Biden administration, the Congress does, but we hope to come to the table and debate the merits of these policies put forward.
I love that so much. And I think, Gen Z is having such an impact on what political parties even look like. And I think Kate made this point earlier, but Gen Z is one of the most diverse generations we've ever had. So I love that you all are stepping up to the plate and creating, the America and the political parties that you want to see. So thank you so much for doing this. And, we are big fans of Gen Z GOP. I feel like we've featured so many of your members on panels before. So we just appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to bring everybody back onto the stage now, and I'm going to have one final question to ask everybody. So let's welcome everyone back. Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to see you all. So for sake of time, because you all had such important things to say, we're going to just do one question. And I want everybody to answer this. So our mission at The Conversationalist is to unify the world. How do you think we can come together and unify to not only advocate for the importance of political efforts, but also to unify at large when it comes to finding common ground? And how can we come together and start more of these important conversations? So Adam, why don't you start first?
Yeah, I think that it's very clear from just this panel that we have such a diverse array of political ideologies and young Gen Z leaders that are working in all these different political spaces. I think that everyone on this panel and probably everyone watching would agree that political polarization is a serious issue in the country right now. And it's not something that showed up because of the recent administration. It's something that's been growing in our country for decades. And I think that as Gen Z, we have obviously seen the effects of that. And I think that we can be the generation as we move forward, as we begin to run for office, because I don't know about everyone else here, but that's something that I am planning on pursuing in the future. We need to be very aware of the political polarization that currently exists and how we can start to shift away and foster bipartisanship, work together. And I think that starting and having those conversations, working in spaces like the Conversationalist, where we have people that are coming together to have conversations, have civil discourse. I think it's so incredibly crucial at this time, because if we don't foster this now, then when we grow up, we are going to end up in situations where we cannot work together as Democrats, as Republicans, as independents.
So true. Thank you, Adam. Ellie, what about you? What do you think?
So I think that at this point, there are so many young people who want to start having these conversations and want to get into the nitty-gritty, difficult, uncomfortable conversations in politics, and just don't necessarily know where to start or how to have them, or honestly, who to talk to. You know, a lot of people, including myself, have a core group of friends who largely agree on political issues. And so I think that what's really special about the Conversationalist is that the app itself is a facilitator for these types of conversations. So it takes all of the, discomfort and hard work out of just getting into a space where you can feel safe to start talking to people and build that common ground. So once you take that barrier, if you will, away from beginning these conversations, I think they'll start to be a lot more frequent and a lot more productive.
Absolutely. Bella, what do you think?
I think one of the biggest aspects of unifying is compassion and understanding. We all have our own lived experiences, and we sometimes get so caught up in that experience that we forget that someone may have lived a completely different life. And I think that, we honor what we've been through, but we should also just listen to what other people have been through and never negate their thoughts, their ideas, and their feelings, because they think that way because they grew up some way, something caused them to be like that. And they may have lived life a certain way. And I think, another really important aspect is denouncing white supremacy in this country and not allowing, like Kate said earlier, racism and homophobia to be allowed in a form of free speech that we just, ignore. I think it should be something that we choose to actively disagree with. We have to love one another. And I think love is the answer in the end.
Awesome. Adrian, how about you?
I think we should place a focus on comfortability and empathy, because it's easy to express our own opinions and express ourselves in a political atmosphere, but making it comfortable for other people to engage and being empathetic towards other people's opinions, because it's not easy for other people to really dive into that sphere. As many of us know, it's very relentless for us to be in there in the first place. So it takes a really tough skin to actually be in there and maintain a presence in there. So trying to alleviate from that, that once notion that you have to have that tough skin, or you have to, really be a tough-minded person to stay in this sphere, could really, unify us in the sense that, it's accessible for everyone to be able to express their opinions or to express their discontent with the status quo, so that we don't always have to, see ourselves as martyrs to be trailblazers. It shouldn't have to be that hard.
Love that. Isaac, what do you think?
Yeah, I just want to echo, first of all, what Bella said. I think it's not just about groups of echo chambers, but every single person has a different lived experience, and you have to recognize that when engaging in dialogue with them. But I also agree with Adrian in making politics accessible to everyone and making it appear to youth, or making youth understand that politics affect our everyday lives. My 12-year-old brother always tells me, Isaac, why do you do politics? It's so stupid, it's so boring. And he's 12, so that's fine. But it's starting early and letting people know that they have the power, especially young people, to make the changes they want to see, regardless of their points of view. It's just important to have that sort of messaging and that mission of civic engagement wherever you go.
So many good points. Jordan, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think everyone has made really, really great points tonight. But I think one thing that's really important is if you're embarking on those kinds of conversations with people who disagree with you, it can be intimidating, especially if you're not necessarily really secure in like the wealth of your knowledge. So I think we go into a lot of those conversations trying to get our point across and make our opinion right. And so similar to what other people have been saying, I think a really great approach is to ask yourself some questions about, where did that person come from? Where did they learn their lessons and in those kinds of things? Maybe what are their fundamental truths, those things that they know deep in their core to be really true. And like we've said all night, I think that's where you find that common ground. And I think that's something that's so important about being empathetic in these moments is that when you walk into that conversation, you're walking in with everything you've learned in your whole life gets you to that place. You're a product of your media environment, of your education, of the mistakes you've made, the lessons that you've learned. So if you just understand that the person on the other side is having that same experience, I think that leads to an empathetic conversation that can be a lot better. But one last thing that I think is really important is as we're developing our voice and you find that within yourself and you bring that to conversations, a lot of people don't think that same way as we might try to, where we're trying to be empathetic and be helpful to the other person in that conversation. When you find your voice, I think that a lot of people try to shut you down. And that's something that I'm sure everyone on this panel experienced. I certainly did myself. When I first got into activism, people were saying, you're too loud, too much, too gay, too this, too that. But I think if there's anyone listening tonight who is struggling with that voice and trying to find it and trying to bring that voice to conversations, I think that the best advice that I can give is that if anyone tells you you're too much or too much of anything, you in the middle of an international deadly pandemic are not only surviving, but you are spending your time trying to help others. And I think that point has to cut through the noise, because if you're too anything, it's you're too courageous. And I think that is the socio-political impulse of Generation Z, is that we are relentless and that we bring that to these conversations. And I think that's why we are going to be the most politically powerful and engaged generation that this country has seen, and which is why I'm so thankful to the Conversationalists for leading these conversations, because this is going to help us when we do take over politics to help make sure that it is actually representative of everyone.
Wow. I'm speechless. Kate, what are your thoughts?
So first of all, Jordan, that was amazing. I just wanted to say that. And I would like to talk about social media. It's very much a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it allows us to express our own ideologies and find our own safe spaces for identities that might not be accepted in other places. But on another, it's just as easily allowing the dissemination of misinformation and the persistence of things like echo chambers. And it's also so easy to gang up on other people and hide behind a screen instead of having these authentic, bold, compassionate conversations that we need to be having. And I mean, the elephant in the room is that we all have pride. It's just human to have pride. But sometimes we have to recognize that it takes effort to set this pride aside for the greater good. And I think people aren't willing to make that effort sometimes. It's difficult for everyone. And it's something that I think we need to talk about more when having these conversations, because we won't get anywhere unless we discuss that elephant in the room. And America doesn't only need to heal now, it needs to grow. And the only way we're going to achieve this growth is by achieving this unity from as many people as we can.
Love that. All right. Mike, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think the way that we can unify around common issues is by addressing that we have to solve these problems that are facing our generation uniquely. We're living through a pandemic that has unique challenges for us with online learning. We have a worsening climate crisis that's obviously going to affect us more than people that might be older than us. We have a mounting debt burden as the resident Republican here. I feel like I have to mention that. And I think that if we cannot unify on these issues, they're just going to keep growing and growing worse. And I think the ways that we can also unify is by seeing one another. I'm going to echo what Kate said about social media. I've noticed over time that it's increasingly an echo chamber. People gang up on each other. People might post Instagram stories that are very demeaning toward large swaths of people on both sides. And I think we need to move away from that. And when it becomes safe to do so, I really love having conversations one-on-one, face-to-face, in person, because you can see the common humanity and realize that we're all coming from, for the most part, a place of good faith. I know that there are extremists out there and we should denounce them, but for the most part, we all want to see a better future for our families, our communities, and our country. And I think that's what we can do going forward.
I love that. Wow. I have learned so much from all of you tonight, and I'm feeling so inspired and energized, as we move into this new year, and really hope that we can all take this message of unity and figuring out how to work together, into 2021. So thank you all for being with us today. And I'm really excited to keep these conversations going. This was such an awesome conversation. And like I mentioned before, if you want to have a conversation with any of these awesome people, come join our Geneva community. And don't forget to join us again tomorrow night when we celebrate our amazing education honorees. Thank you all for sticking with us, and have a great night. We will see you tomorrow.